Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. We got there, we got to the end of the season, and it was good. It was surprisingly good the way the season ended. Maybe we shouldn't have been surprised. Maybe we're just conditioned with Tottenham Hotspur to expect the worst, and actually, it all ended up being very good. It was a very sunny day at Carrow Road, and it just pretty much continued in that vein. Got to the stadium about 3 hours before. Kind of walked down pretty much pitch side. Had a little look at the away dugout where Conte and his team were going to be. And the sun was shining, and something about the day, it kind of started to feel like, do you know what? Spurs might not mess this up. And so it proved to be. It was weird because all the drama was happening elsewhere. We kind of see it unfolding on social media. Whereas with that little corner of East Anglia, Spurs were just doing the job at hand. And the biggest drama with Tottenham was whether Sonny was going to get that golden boot, which he did, which was fantastic. It was a day when pretty much everything went the way of Tottenham Hotspur that they really wanted. Barring a Chelsea defeat by about 10 goals and Spurs winning by about 10 goals, which I think might have put them closer to finishing third. But in the end, it really didn't matter. It just didn't. For Antonio Conte to have dragged Spurs by the scruff of their neck into fourth place is remarkable. And it sets up a really exciting summer and a season with Champions League football to come. The Champions League. Remember those days when Spurs sat at the top table and reached the Champions League final? Champions League is back. It's fantastic. I cannot wait to report on it. It's going to be so exciting. And what was really interesting was that, I think a lot of Arsenal fans, and I think, a lot of media perhaps even were, wondering whether there was going to be a Spursy day. We did all cast our minds back to that final day at Newcastle when they were already relegated. And of course, we had Harry Kane being unwell just before this game, 48 hours before the match, which by itself brought back memories of Lasagna Gate, which was it was a crime against lasagna because it wasn't even anything to do with lasagna. It was actually someone had the norovirus and spread it around camp. That wasn't even anything to do with food poisoning that day. I interviewed Martin Joel way back about it, and I'm pretty sure he told me there wasn't even lasagna on the menu. I think it was meat and fish dishes. But anyway, I digress. Because we don't have to worry about such unfortunate things because Tottenham finished fourth, back in the top four, continue, I think it's 6 seasons above Arsenal now. I'm really intrigued to see how the All or Nothing series turns out for Arsenal now because, in a weird, ironic way, the ending of their All or Nothing documentary series is actually going to be a better ending for Spurs than Spurs one, which is it's going to be weird to watch. I'm intrigued to see how they kind of dress it up, whether it's, of course, all these things have to have a bit of a positive ending. I presume they will go down the widespread media route of, they're a young team and they've overachieved and all of this sort of stuff. But, Tottenham Hotspur, there's no dressing up anything. They did incredibly well to finish the season where they did. And a massive platform built for what comes next season. We're going to talk a lot about the summer. We're going to talk about a lot of the meeting that Conte has coming up with Daniel Levy and Fabio Paratici. So don't worry, we're going to cover that at length. My only worry is how the world I'm going to fit everything in that I've got to try and fit into this video. So I just want to talk about the Spursy thing because it was actually quite interesting that Eric Dyer was asked about it before the game for the Sunday newspapers. And I think he got a little bit defensive about it, and understandably so. Here are his quotes so you understand why I'm kind of saying this because it links in nicely with the Norwich game. He said, "I see other teams go through situations, but there isn't a word for them. We can shake it off on Sunday and then next year we'll have a result and it will be back. In the time I've been here, we've had incredible highs where the club has never been before, and then 2 days later, that, as in the word, will come back after a certain result. It will always be there. We've got to enjoy that pressure, prepare as well as possible and use it as a wind at our back instead of in our face." I like that line. Eric Dyer is a clever chap. He really is, and he's got a very articulate, and that's why you get stuff like that. And he was absolutely right on the day. Spurs, whether it was the Conte mentality or whether it was something that actually, when you look at it, this whole Spursy thing, they've probably done better in a lot of the big games in the last, 8 years than they probably have in the other games. So when it kind of come to it, when it's been the business end, they've done what's needed, and that was exactly the case on against Norwich. Look, we've got to add the caveat that Norwich were dreadful. They got booed by their own fans on their own lap of honour or lap of applause, appreciation, whatever you want to call it at the end. They were poor. But Spurs were clinical. 19 shots, 13 on target. If it wasn't for Tim Krul, yes, him again, it would have been 5-0, could have been 9-0, 10-0. It could have been a ridiculous scoreline. And obviously the fact that once Spurs got to a certain point, they were trying to set up Sonny for his goals. And that was lovely as well, because I think it showed the team spirit in that team. But yeah, it was just weird that everything else was going on elsewhere, and Spurs were probably the calmest team in the land, which is so unusual. We're used to Spurs being chaos when we watch them and report on them. And Dyer, again, I think a lot of it comes back to Conte. I think a lot of it comes back into the way he drilled the team ahead of the match. I'm pretty sure, I think it was Dyer said that he spoke to them, he gave them a little speech about how he'd won titles on the last day and lost titles on the last day, and the kind of the differences between those days and how they approached it and stuff like that. So, for these players, this is information they need. This is stuff that maybe some of them aren't used to. And that was crucial. They never really, funny enough, it was Dyer probably had the one shaky moment with one misplaced pass, which was shot wide anyway. But other than that, everything they did was just dominant in the match. And it's interesting, Dyer quote ahead of the game about Conte. He changed everything from the moment he came in. There is a different work ethic in a building, a different discipline. He has incredible experience, and you feed off his personality, his confidence in his work. It's hard not to believe it yourself because he has so much belief in what he does. Training, meetings and matches are 100%. What has surprised me is that outside of that, he is very approachable, very easy to speak with. He likes to have a laugh. And he does. You see that. You can see that kind of in and around the pitch. In our press conferences, he can be good fun. He likes to laugh. He likes to, joke about certain situations. He was proud about what he did. Look, he will remind us every 5 minutes that he's a man who wants to win trophies. He does. That's what he does. But maybe a little bit similar to Jose Mourinho and Man United's second place finish. I think Conte sees this as a huge kind of thing in his CV. He's gone into a club that was in an utter mess, broken and fragmented after, a Nuno Espirito Santo reign that just didn't work. Everyone was demoralised. People thought, the players and staff inside the building thought the club weren't heading in any particular direction. Conte came in and he dragged them in his direction. He did. So I think he should quite understandably think that, this is an achievement this season. And maybe, interestingly, for a winner like him, maybe it does also give him a bit of perspective on different things that you can achieve in management. I understand. Silverware is the end game. That is it. That is the be-all and end-all in terms of, your legacy, I guess, and stuff like that. But also, there's other achievements for managers they can do. And his quotes afterwards, he told Sky, "I have to be honest, I think finishing fourth is one of the most important achievements in my career. Sometimes it's not only when you lift a trophy to be satisfied. I think we reached the maximum level that we dreamed of in November, because then the situation was not so good for many reasons. The club changed the coach, and with injuries we tried to find the good solution. I think we've done a really good job, and for me this is a big achievement in a league that is very difficult, because here you find the best players and the best coaches. I'm happy, even though I didn't lift any trophies this season." And I asked the first couple of questions in the actual press conference itself. And I said to him, what did he say? I said something like, you called this a miracle. how does it feel to have achieved a miracle? And he said, he had a bit of a laugh about that. And then he said, if we come back to the past, yes, it was very, very difficult to explain this outcome about Tottenham, but we're enjoying a lot what we did. And for me, I didn't lift a trophy this season like in the past. But if I have to be honest and see the path and the difficulties to come in since November in a difficult situation with a team that was struggling a lot in a difficult league like this Premier League, it's very, very difficult to reach a place in the Champions League. I have to consider this a really big achievement for me and for my players, and also the club consider this a big achievement. For after 3 years, Tottenham is able to play in the Champions League. For us, it's very important because the best players, the best coaches want to play in this competition for this trophy. We must be pleased with what we did. He does, you look back and Spurs were 7 points adrift of top four at one point. They were. And you just have to look back to that night at Turf Moor because, he snarled, he bared his teeth, he was angry, he threatened to leave. And what happened after that? Spurs won 10 of their remaining 14 matches in the Premier League. That's astonishing. If you look at that form, that is up there with best in the league kind of form. 10 wins from 14. And then you even look at the ones that weren't winning, they were frustrating as anything, weren't they? The Brighton match, the Brentford match, United game. And the other one has escaped my mind completely. Brentford, Brighton. I'm trying to think what was after that one. You guys will tell me in the comments, so I don't need to remember. You will tell me, and a lot of you will tell me as well. I always find that. It's not just one person tells me. No one else looks at the comments, and they all want to say it, which is great. It's all interaction. I love all that. I love people interacting underneath. It's fantastic. Actually, it was really nice. Someone said the other day that they kind of felt like it was a bit of a community within the comments section. And I love that. That's fantastic. If you guys can create a bit of a community for yourself within that, that's brilliant. Honestly, that really kind of made me smile when I saw that, because it is so not about me and this stupid face and this voice. It's also about you guys being able to interact with each other and discuss Spurs underneath. I love that. But yeah, Sunday afternoon was not just about Tottenham Hotspur. It was. Once the job was done, it was also about Sonny. I'm so happy for Sonny. I really am. He got exactly what he deserved, and that is that golden boot, which he kept saying it to everyone was very heavy. It was. And what they did before the game, they had 2 golden boots ready, one at Carrow Road and one at Anfield, for either or Mohamed Salah and Sonny. And there was one moment in particular I just felt, well, there's 2 moments, but one moment mainly with the fans that I felt summed up the love for Sonny at Tottenham Hotspur. So the fans had got wind that Sonny had already scored twice, and the fans got wind that Salah had kind of scored that scruffy goal for Liverpool. And they all started singing, the Sonny chant, which used to be used for Cyril Knowles back in the day. But, nice one, Sonny, nice one, son, nice one, Sonny, let's have another one. Because they were trying to tell him, Salah's scored, and he might score against you, might need another one, or even alone, you might need another one if you want to just have the golden boot on your own. And I just thought that was lovely. It was a real moment of them trying to communicate with him and that bond that they wanted him to score another one. Because, well, in the end, he didn't actually need it, because he didn't need another one. Because he did share that golden boot with 23 goals. And it cannot be stressed enough, no penalties. No penalties. That's just, we were trying to look back to work out if anyone else had done it. I think we found Luis Suarez did, because Gerrard used to take the penalties, I think, for Liverpool. This is Premier League we're talking about. And also, we think Mane might have did it when he shared the golden boot with Salah and Aubameyang a few years back. But it's rare. It's very rare. To score 23 goals all from open play is superb. It really is. It's some achievement. You know what? There was a point where we thought it might not happen, and I think Sonny thought it might not happen, because he was having a battle with Tim Krul. Tim Krul was saving shots from all over the place. And to be fair to Harry Kane, who, he didn't start in the season too badly himself. Look, even Kane's stats, he went from scoring once in his first 13 games to netting 16 in his last 24. But for Kane, I almost felt like the match was all about him trying to set up Sonny. He had so many moments where he tried to put him away. There was one one-on-one he put him through into the box. The one where he had the shot literally for about 3 yards was Kane's ball across the face of goal that Krul saved. Kane was trying everything, and I love that about that partnership as well. I love that he's trying to help Sonny. It's not just about Kane, because Kane wasn't that far back. In the end, Kane ended up 4th top scorer. If he's had final days, I think against Hull, he scored 3 or 4 on the last day. He's quite the prolific goal scorer, so it may have been a part of him that thought, if Norwich really collapsed, you never know. But it wasn't. It was all about helping Sonny. And what was lovely was that Sonny said as well that when Lucas and Bergwijn came off the bench, they both told him that they wanted to set him up for goals. They said, we're going to set you up. And I love that. And even you saw Kulusevski. Kulusevski tried so hard in one moment when he rounded Krul to set up Son when he could have scored quite easily. He ended up kind of tangling his own feet and stubbing the ball with his standing right foot as he kind of was almost falling over. And it ended up being tackled kind of right on the line, Sonny was. And it was so unfortunate because you could see what he was trying to do. It just didn't quite happen. And Son was getting more and more frustrated because I think he could just see this wonderful opportunity slipping away. But then, true to his word, Lucas Moura did the job. He set him up. He did a lovely little touch on the spin. Went to Sonny, bang, straight into the bottom right corner. And then, of course, to top it all off, cuts inside. I think it was a Lucas free kick that was cleared out. Sonny takes the ball, comes inside and curls an absolute trademark Sonny special into that right-hand side, just inside the post. And the irony, and Sonny kind of said it afterwards, got some Sonny quotes in here. He scored the harder chances and he actually didn't put away the easier chances, which is so funny in a way because it just sums him up. Technically, he's just so fantastic in what he can do. Sometimes the most simple things, for some unknown reason, maybe he outthinks it, thinks about it too much, I don't know. And then he'll come up and he'll just produce a world-class finish. Both finishes were unsavable. They were superb. And the celebration was lovely for his second one. He sprinted over and lo and behold, it was Ben Davies, his best mate. He jumped into Ben Davies' arms. Ben Davies was kind of running backwards with him. And I think there was a point when the Welshman probably thought, I might drop him here. This could be really awkward. So he kind of span and threw him onto the ground with him. And that just created a big bundle. And then as they came up, Lucas grabbed him and yanked him into the air and and it was all in front of the travelling Tottenham fans who were brilliant yesterday. They were so loud. It was lovely. When you want to see good things happen to good people, that so applies to Sonny. He is such a nice guy. He's got that drive though. He's got that little streak inside him that, for all of the talk about him not wanting individual awards, he wanted that golden boot. And I love that. I think that's really important. I think the top players have that drive. And, he is a humble guy and he will think about the team first. But I love the fact that he also wanted that prize. And, it was superb. I'm trying to see if I've got the quotes for you. So, here we are. It's incredible to have this award. I can't believe it. I got really emotional. I dreamed of it as a child. Literally, it's in my hand. I can't believe it. Until my goal, I was really frustrated that I missed big chances. I told the players I missed the easiest chances and scored one of the toughest ones. I didn't give up. I wanted to score today. The team helped me a lot at half-time. They wanted to help me. You could see it today. This season was a great lesson. Next season, we can look forward to the Champions League. Everyone deserves to be there. Conte gives us so many different things. Before he came here, nobody believed we'd reach the Champions League. And I asked Conte about Sonny as well, because I even tried to make out the point in my questions, like, I know you wanted team first and the team did the job, and then it was Sonny, you must be delighted for him. But he still kind of wanted to hammer home the point about the team, and he said, you know very well what I said during my press conference. I said, okay, but before we need to get a place in the Champions League. Then, if there's a possibility to help Sonny to become top scorer in the league, then we are very happy. He scored twice and he could have scored more, but at the same time, I want to underline the big effort the team did for Sonny. To see this, I really appreciated the will, the desire of the teammates to help him become top scorer. I mean that it means that there is a great atmosphere in the dressing room. It means that the players are really good people, not only good players. We were good to match today these two targets to get a place in the Champions League and for Sonny to win the Golden Boot. It's a magnificent achievement for him. I think Sonny felt a bit of pressure to reach his target, but we are very happy for him. Today we had two targets. The first was getting to the Champions League and then to try and help Sonny to become top scorer. So we're very happy. And it was great. I mean, I don't know if you've seen them, but the PFA nominations for Player of the Season, they do not contain Son Heung-min. I do not understand why they do not contain Son Heung-min. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And Eric Dyer put a tweet out today. What did he say? He said, 23 goals, brackets, no pens. And it was a gif of Jim Carrey picking up two glasses like binoculars trying to look for it. And it is mind-blowing. I mean, some of the other players, look, all the players nominated very good seasons, they did. But few of them matched the numbers that Sonny came out with. I mean, Sonny was it 23 goals and 9 assists in the Premier League, 24 goals and 10 assists in all. It's funny, actually, because all but 1 goal and 1 assist were in the Premier League. And I presume that's because he got rested and rotated a little bit more in the cup competitions. Otherwise, his numbers could have been ridiculous. But he's just an incredible player. I wrote this down. Since December, only 7 out of the 24 Premier League matches Son played in since, he didn't score or provide an assist. Only 7 out of the 24. Every other game had a goal or an assist from Sonny. It's phenomenal. And what I really think I like about it is the fact that I think Sonny sometimes, people don't let him out of... I think what Kane does sometimes overshadows what Son's done unfairly. And even if Son does something great, it's almost lumped into this partnership with Kane thing. Which there is. It's a brilliant partnership and they get on really well. They play so well together. But I think it almost prevents Sonny from being recognised for, I'd say, the world-class player he is. I do think that. And I just think this Golden Boot almost signifies him emerging from that. Just before, look, Harry Kane is an incredible player. He is an incredible player. And he's scored so many goals in the past as well. But I just feel like this was Son's season. It was. And, Son, maybe, I think within Spurs, everyone appreciates Son. He sweeps the award. I think he swept the awards last year as well. But I just think maybe for the outside world to just realise how good Sonny is. To have matched the same amount of goals as Salah this season, but without a single penalty. Some might say just give him the trophy because that's incredible. And yes, I know technically a penalty is a shot at goal, but I think that's... it just kind of, I think that's it. I think I actually summed it up. I don't really probably need to say much more. He's a world-class player, and now the world, I think, can see just how good he is because I know it's not a team piece of silverware, but he has that individual bit of silverware to show he was the joint top scorer in the Premier League that season. That goes down in history forever now. And I think that's probably why he wanted it so much. It is a part of a legacy. It is a thing like that. And do you know what? Defenders out there, I think he can still get better. I know he's 29 now? I don't actually think he's hit his peak. I think it's coming, but I think he can just still be even better. The key thing with Sonny is that he's reached this consistency now, which is fantastic. You're going to get a certain amount of goals and assists from him now every season. And he's the man for the big occasions and he will be there to bail the team out. But I think in terms of his decisions on the pitch, I think he can still get even better, which is frightening. Great for Tottenham, frightening for other defences, I think. Brilliant on Sonny. Also wanted to talk about the two January boys, because that's a sore subject if you head down the road to that lot, who wear red. Because I know, I was speaking to some of the Arsenal reporters. I know a few people that support Arsenal as well. And that is one of their biggest issues with it all, is that Spurs absolutely smashed what they needed to do in January. Arsenal did nothing. And it's funny when you look back, because I even remember myself, on the last day, I was like, they're good signings, Kulusevski and Bentancur, but I would have liked a bit more. But the irony is actually, they were exactly what Tottenham needed. They really were. look, we all want more. Conte would want more. Managers always want more. But ultimately, they've got to be two of the best examples of how to get a January transfer window right. They picked two players that were perfect for the Premier League, perfect for Tottenham, perfect for Conte, ridiculously cheap. We're going to talk about the Bentancur price in a minute. And ultimately, you could argue that there were 2 days that top four was achieved for Tottenham. And I know it was achieved yesterday. But what I mean is, you could say that January 31st was the day that Spurs helped themselves secure top four, signing both those players. And you could argue that night at Turf Moor as well was the other night when they absolutely rammed it home, because everything changed really from that point as well. But the arrival of Bentancur and Kulusevski is just so pivotal. It really is. I just wanted, what was I going to say about these two? Because I'd written a piece down that was so, I just think they're so crucial. It's that both of them came in, how do I put this? Both so young, but both so experienced. I think that's what Tottenham needed. They needed guys that have been in the pressure cooker elsewhere. They've been, maybe you look at some of Spurs' biggest signings in recent years, and maybe they haven't, how do I put this? I think that's it. I think they haven't been really tested in a pressure cooker environment. You could maybe argue Lo Celso was at PSG, but then he'd gone on elsewhere to Betis. But what I would say is, you've got with Bentancur, 3-time Serie A title winner, Coppa Italia winner twice, won the Primera Division in Argentina, the title there twice. This is a guy who wins stuff. He's only 24, but especially you look at that third title win in Serie A, he was pivotal to Juventus. And I've said this before, but to play for Juventus with the pressure that is there, honestly, it's a walk in the park at Tottenham compared to that. It really is. And even Kulusevski, having watched All or Nothing and watched the pressure he had to deal with in that season for Juventus last year, 21 years old. But you know what? He came through a lot of it. He scored some big goals for them as well. And I think they both arrived at Tottenham with just the exact mentality that Tottenham needed. And you look at yesterday, Bentancur went off down the tunnel against Burnley. Big smile on his face, but he was limping heavily. He took a big whack towards the end of the game. He had to come off. 7 days later, he's running the game at Carrow Road. Honestly, he was brilliant. From the opening moments, everyone looked to Bentancur because he, like I say, this is where it all feeds in, the whole Juventus stuff. Maybe there would have been a few nervous heads, I don't know. Bentancur was just strolling around like it was another day for him. This is a guy used to, wrapping up titles and stuff. So for him, knowing that he had to beat the bottom team, already relegated in the league on the final day, was nothing. And he played like that. He just said, give me the ball. Just give me the ball. I'll deal with it. Doesn't matter how tight this scenario is with people around me. I will deal with it. And that was perfectly exemplified by the first goal. Got the ball, played it to Højbjerg, went running forward. And I think he actually looked around him at one point and thought, Norwich aren't tracking me. And he was just like, come on in. And just kept running. Højbjerg plays a perfect lofted ball. Watch Bentancur's first touch as he takes into his stride. Honestly, it was superb. So he takes it into his stride, gets into the box, looks up, sees Kulusevski slightly pull back from the on-rushing defenders around him, and just plays it back, and Kulusevski knocks it. It was calm as anything. And then the second goal for Harry Kane's header was all about anticipation. He kind of sprinted down the right, cut out Krul's ball out from the goal. But what he did was even more impressive, was that most people in that situation might have intercepted the ball and maybe kind of almost made a tackle, knocked it to someone. Bentancur's first thought was, I'm going to intercept this and at the same time play the ball as a cross to Kane. And it was a better cross than most players would do if they had time and space to do it, and it was like a second or third touch. It was brilliant. And then Kane, in oceans of space, heads it home. Bentancur was just fantastic. And the reason I talk about the finances, because I wanted to realise just how good a deal Spurs got for Bentancur, right? So he was £16.1 million, and 19 million euros was the actual deal, payable within 3 years, and there are add-ons of £5 million, or 6 million euros technically, if other objectives are met. That's just incredible. I've just listed off all the things this guy's won, and he's only 24 and going to get better. And Spurs signed him up for less than they paid for Vincent Janssen, however many years ago that was. Less than they paid for a fair whack of players, to be honest. Cost less than Brian Hill, less than Emerson Royale. It's an incredible figure. It is. I cannot believe Juventus allowed him to go for that cheap, to be honest. And like I say, I think he improves those around him. I don't think it's any coincidence that Højbjerg's second half of the season, I feel he's got better and better as it's worn on. Especially in the big games. I think Højbjerg has been there to be counted. And I think that comes from knowing that Bentancur's got his back. He knows that he can run forward, and Bentancur is tactically clever enough to cover behind him. And do you know what I'm also really excited about? Oliver Skip hasn't played a single minute with Rodrigo Bentancur yet. Imagine what he will soak up from the Uruguayan next season when he plays alongside him. Even in pre-season, I think he will learn a lot from him. Really excited to see what that also, as a pairing in some matches, is going to be like. And then there's Kulusevski. Oh, Decky. Decky is superb. He really is. He really, really is. He's got so much ability and football nous for someone his age. You watch him, and I think one of the things that I've really, really started paying attention to is how strong he is on the ball and shielding it. The amount of times he receives the ball with his back to the opposition half, probably outside the Spurs box or midway in the Spurs half, and he pretty much always shields it, turns with the ball, and gets away. He is Premier League made. I think we can criticise maybe Paratici for some of the signings last summer. Those 2 January signings were spot on for the Premier League. They were so good. And Kulusevski, honestly, I'm going to have to start starting up loads of laminated membership fan clubs because there's so many players that I just feel like are really coming along. Kulusevski is definitely one of them. And both his goals just summed him up beautifully. First goal, poacher's instinct, get into that box, close range finish. Second goal, which came not long after the fluffed pass to Son. So you might have thought he might have looked up to make up for it. No chance. Cut inside and hit a peach of a shot. I can't decide which was the best goal, his or Sonny's. Maybe Sonny's for what it represents, but Kulusevski's goal was beautiful. Left foot, top left corner. Ooh. Suits you, sir. It really did. I wasn't going to do the impression, don't worry. It was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Who else to pick out on the day? Davinson Sanchez, again, came in, did a very good job, nullified pretty much everything that came down that flank. Don't forget, he's come in, 3 games Romero, 3 clean sheets. He's not Romero, different kind of player, but he came in and absolutely did the job. Ben Davies took a cross right to that painful area. Right to that painful area within the first few minutes. He needed some time. He stayed down for a little while, but my goodness, he battled on. And Dyer as well. I thought Dyer, that pass aside was very good. Norwich didn't have a single shot to make. So Norwich didn't get a shot on target. That is partly down to how poor they are going forward, but also the fact that there was no way forward for them because Spurs was superb in their defensive efforts. Emerson Sessegnon, probably slightly quieter days for them, but still did their job defensively. And yeah, all the subs came off the bench and tried to make things happen. Lucas more so than anyone else. And it was a lovely day to see them all kind of celebrate what they did. And I watched, it was really funny. Lucas did another one of his I'm going to jump on a steward's back thing. But actually, I know the steward he jumped on the back of is Stephen Barley. He's a lovely guy. I know him because he's always at Spurs. I always see him around the press area. And he's always does the away stuff as well. He's among the dedicated group of travelling stewards that go with Spurs everywhere. That was why he was at Norwich. I've seen him away in Europe. He is certainly, he's one of these Mr. Tottenham guys. He is properly everywhere. And it was a lovely moment. And fair play to him. When Lucas jumped onto his shoulders, he caught him. That could have been a disaster. He could have tipped forward. He could have dropped Lucas on his head. He could have done anything. But he caught him and he ended up looking like someone taking their son out to the park on his shoulders. It was superb. Emerson also tried to jump on the steward next to him, but I didn't actually see what happened with Emerson, whether he managed that. And it didn't look quite as good as Lucas Leap. Lucas Leap's high, we know he does. And yeah, it was a funny moment. And they just loved it over there in the corner. That they with the fans were singing all their names. When Conte had his name sung, he was going like this. He was like, no, it's all about them. It was really lovely. Every player pretty much had his name. And actually, Ben Davies in the game. They were singing Super Ben Davies. Look, I know it's not the most original chant. It's not a chant of his own, really. It's a chant that we've seen many players' names used. But I thought that was lovely that Ben Davies was getting his name sung. And it was because he made another big block or something. I can't remember what it was exactly. But I loved that. And I do think... I'd like to hope that Ben Davies is being recognised this season for what he is for... Not only what he is for Tottenham, but also what he brings on the pitch. He is no bad player. He's not. And I think playing him in this position has shown all the strengths that he can bring. I love it. I do. I think it's fantastic that, people... It was interesting because I had a nice train journey up with a couple of chaps I know. And one of them was talking about Davinson Sanchez. And he was saying, as fans do, I just can't like him. I just can't like him. I just can't see the good he does. And I'd hope that some people that have those opinions on certain players have looked at their performances this season and thought, do you know what? Fair play. Fair play. Maybe I was wrong on some of these players and have written off what they can bring to a team. Because don't forget, next season with Champions League, yes, Champions League, la, 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 and all of that, you are going to need a strong second 11 pretty much as your first 11. And I do wonder whether, players like Davinson Sanchez might have left last summer. But now I wonder whether you have to keep him because I think you're going to have so many huge games. You need a man that can come in and do what he does. And Ben Davies, I know there will be some fans out there will want, and we're going to talk about a left-sided centre-back that I know Conte and Paratici both love. But also, I think that needs to be the competition element. I think both of them. Don't forget what Davies brings going forward as well and how he builds the play as well. And I'd love to think that he will play a big part for Spurs again next season, regardless of who comes in. And that's what Tottenham need. It's competition. Which seems as good a point as any to start looking forward and talking about the summer. I don't think anyone can sum it up better than Eric Dyer and Hugo Lloris did. I can't, as they are truly men on the inside. Here are their quotes that they said after the game in the mix zone to the journos, right? This is Eric Dyer. I think the club needs to take advantage of this moment. Take advantage of this team and this manager. It's in the club's hands now. We've done our job, and now it's the club's job this summer to do the best work they can. I'm sure they'll try to do the best they can to put us in a position next season for us and the manager to continue to push on and get better and better. It's not just investment. The club has a lot of room for improvement in many areas. Everyone always points to investment, but that's just one part of it. There's many areas we can improve, and we need everyone to be going in the same direction. The players and the managers are. I'm sure the club will do the best they can as well. You might as well have slap that in an envelope addressed Dear Daniel Lee or just Daniel Levy, Lily White House on the front, because that summed it up better than I can. And actually, Hugo Lloris, he kind of hammered it home in his... Hugo Lloris, by the way, who registered his 16th Premier League clean sheet of the season yesterday. Superb. So his afterwards... Now we need to use this feeling. We need to use this moment to become bigger and stronger and come back next season with more ambition. I believe Conte knows exactly what he wants and needs. I believe there is huge confidence. It's just about making decisions together now. I'm a player. We're going to switch off from the club. We still have international duties, but now it belongs to the main protagonist to make the right decisions, to prepare for next season as well as we can. Then we'll come back with desire and ambition. Ambition. It couldn't be clearer. That's the word. And look, Spurs are going to do it. Spurs are going to do it. That's what I'm saying. I'm just going to say it right there. As soon as that game finished, I started contacting every single person I could get anything from within that club. Anyone that has anything to do with the club. And everything came back with a singular kind of response. They're going to back him. They are going to back Antonio Conte. They are. They know, you've heard me say this enough times. This is the crossroads summer. This is a what do you do next? Do you slip back down or do you march forward? They are marching forward firm. They're going to give him their full backing in the transfer window in the summer. And not only that, they're going to let him lead it. They're going to let him and Paratici lead what they want to do. And I think that's crucial as well. We've seen moments before where Spurs make do on transfers. They go for a different option. They'll do whatever. Look, we know there are times in transfers where you just cannot get a deal done. Let's take Luis Diaz, for example. Luis Diaz just wanted to go to Liverpool. There's nothing you can do about that. But there are moments in Tottenham's past where they've chosen player B instead of player A, when if they'd just gone for A, it would have made that difference. And from what I understand, Spurs are going to be looking at that player A. That's what they're going to do. If Conte wants them, they will do everything within their power to get him. And that is crucial because that's what Conte wants to hear in this meeting. Paratici wants to assemble a squad that can challenge at the very top for Tottenham. And that's what Conte wants. Conte said it repeatedly. He just wants to be able to feel that the club has the possibility to win a title. Look, we've all got to be realistic. At the moment, Liverpool, Man City are light years ahead of everyone. But Spurs need to begin. Conte said this about Klopp, He said, if you asked me whether I want what happened with Klopp, with the years of building towards knowing what you were going to get, I'd have signed up immediately. And that's what Spurs need to make clear to him. We're building towards that. We are going to build a team that will allow you to challenge properly. Because it's, you look at it and Conte only, January, was saying that there's an important gap between Tottenham and Chelsea. Tottenham ended up finishing just 3 points behind Chelsea. It's incredible, honestly. You think about what was one of those matches had they won, the Brighton game. Like they got a goal rather than letting Brighton score one. They would have been there. It could have been anything. And I just find that incredible that even that important gap had kind of almost disappeared by the end of the season. Admittedly, Chelsea took their foot off the gas a bit and they had other distractions, but still, if Conte can do that with what he had, which is essentially 2 signings, think what he could do with a pre-season and a squad tailored towards him. Oh, it's so exciting. And the fact that every voice I'm hearing, and these aren't people that... this isn't any press briefing thing. This isn't people that have an interest in putting out such a message. Because there's no reason to do that. Because Conte is going to go into a meeting, isn't he? In a few days' time. And if that meeting is completely different, then what was the point of saying publicly that it's backing it? It makes no sense because if Conte doesn't hear what he wants to hear, he's going to come out and there will be very quickly interviews in the Italian media saying that. So it's not a situation that anyone can, let's say, manipulate. And certainly a lot of these different people that I was asking, they're not people that have any interest in doing that anyway. That's not how it works. These aren't PR type people. And I think you'll find that, funnily enough, other people, I did my story last night and I've seen other journalists since have clearly been sourcing their various contacts and similar stories are coming out. Tottenham are going to back Antonio Conte. Hopefully this isn't one of these where you see me nearly in tears on September the 1st or whenever after the transfer window goes, it didn't back him. But that's what everyone's saying. And also there's a desire to get kind of new faces through the door earlier in time for him to take them on pre-season to the tour to Korea, Rangers, Israel, and that's crucial because it's such a grueling pre-season as we know. It's going to be crucial really for the way things work out. Also, going to be a departure from the whole we'll only sign young players policy. If there is an older player that Conte feels is the perfect fit for what he wants, Spurs will go for that player. They will. Don't get me wrong, there will be instances like Bentancur is a perfect example. That is an experienced player. He is an experienced player who is also 24. So he ticks both boxes and there will be moments when they will make decisions like that. But ultimately, from everything I understand, Conte will be told in this meeting, he will get 100% guarantees of what he wants is going to happen. And that is huge. That is huge because, I'm going to read you some quotes later. He was still a bit ambiguous when he spoke, a little bit after the game. But everything I'm hearing is that in this meeting, he's going to get guarantees that what he wants is going to happen. And that's huge. It really is huge. By the way, Conte has headed off. He is gone back home to Italy for a few days to spend with his wife, Elisabetta, and his daughter, Vittoria, I think it is. If you weren't aware, Vittoria is still in school in Italy. She's only young, so that's why they're in Italy. So he's headed back for a few days. He wanted to decompress, get the emotions out of his system before he has this big meeting. But there is a real expectation within the club that Antonio Conte will be the manager next season. He's a demanding man. He is. This is a guy who has walked out on Juventus in pre-season once after they'd won the title. He has walked out into Milan after they've just won the title because he don't feel that they would challenge again next season. He will have no hesitation on walking out on Tottenham if he doesn't feel things are right. But Spurs feel that they're going to give him all the answers he wants to hear. And not only words, but actions over the summer. That is huge. Who is this Tottenham Hotspur? Although I say that, but you look at 2019, although there were some decisions made that summer that you think they definitely could have gone for player A rather than player B, but they spent a lot of money. They just made some bad decisions. And I think that's where Paratici is going to be key this summer. He has been, you've heard me say before, he's been overhauling various departments within the club, and one of those is scouting. I think you'll hopefully start to see the dividends kind of bearing fruit of that this summer. And also Paratici, what maybe has gone under the radar a little bit, is Paratici likes a free transfer. He's very good at them. He got a lot of them over the line at Juventus. And while there will be money spent, there will be money spent. Don't worry, I'm not saying that's an alternative. What I'm saying is this has got to be a proper rebuild in a way, in terms of, I think there's going to be a fair few departures, and Spurs are going to have not only Champions League football to contend with as well as a Premier League. You can't change 11 players in Champions League. It's not like playing a Conference League match. You can't put all the kids in and stuff like that. You need to have, like I say, a big squad where Conte isn't looking to the bench and thinking, oh man. And I know he's been thinking that. I know people around Conte that have said he's looked at that bench at times and he's just turned back to the pitch because he knows there wasn't anything on the bench of the required quality of what he wanted in that moment for that specific task. And that's with no disrespect to, let's say, the young players, but let's be perfectly honest. If you've got 4 or 5 injuries, you should not have 4 academy players having to make up the bench. If you've got 9, 10 injuries in your first team squad, I understand that. But if you're only replacing 4, let's say, injured players with 4 academy players, where's the squad gone? It's too early for those young players. They need to be built up slowly. And it's no coincidence that none of them were used. They weren't. In all of those games they were on there, pretty much, they didn't come on. And that's because they were kind of there almost in an absolute emergency. It's all about that squad. And I think my point was about the free transfers is that Paratici, especially with Champions League football as well on offer, can now go to various people on free transfers and he can make a compelling case of coming to Tottenham and working with Conte. And Spurs, like I say, I understand, will offer the good wages for these players as well, because obviously they're not costing anything. And I think by using free transfers in the right areas, you can then prioritise your funds into the other areas where you need to spend big. There also will be money having to be spent on players that have already been at the club. Romero and Kulusevski, of course, their deals have to be made permanent. You're looking at around 70 million there. But what I would stress on that isn't money that's going out the door right away now. I mean, Kulusevski, I remember when they did the deal, Juventus put out very clearly in their statement about it, Spurs had 5 financial years to pay that permanent fee. So that can be spread out, that can be done however they see fit. And I'd be stunned if Romero isn't similar, if there's not some kind of financial way of spreading that across. The other one that's quite interesting, Sergio Reguilon. I've known about this one, but I've been holding off on reporting and kind of until I could find out the whole thing, because I kept hearing that essentially it was all Reguilon's deal was almost, and this is why I've been kind of reluctant to report on it, but almost a 2-year loan deal with an obligation to buy. It's not exactly that, from what I can tell. It's not, but it's as close to a loan as you can get, because essentially it seems like Spurs signed him. Obviously, he signed a 5-year deal, which negates the loan thing. Although with an obligation to buy, it's a bit like Romero. I think Romero already had signed his contract as well ahead of what will become a permanent move this summer. Romero's is slightly different. It's not technically an obligation, but it's an option that was so pretty much almost an obligation. We won't go into that. It's complicated. But with Reguilon, what it is they signed him and it kind of almost got him for 2 years for nothing, because then they had to pay the fee in the second summer. Yeah, so summer of 2022. They signed him in the summer of 2020. So it's interesting with Reguilon because it was about 28 million the fee, I think, if I remember correctly. So in all, that's almost 100 million Spurs have to pay out. Like I say, the first two, probably going to be ways that is spread across or whatever. With Reguilon, I think the option may be that they look to sell him. I think they will. I think Sessegnon is clearly the first choice in Conte's mind in terms of the long-term prospect. And I think it doesn't seem to be as much trust in Reguilon that he can play the wing-back role. It's something that he admits himself he hasn't played as much as he has. So I do wonder whether they tried to offset the cost of Reguilon by selling him. And no doubt in the Spurs way, tried to sell him for more. For Reguilon himself, as I understand, I don't think he's desperate to leave. But I do wonder whether that changes if he is told, look, you're not going to be the first choice here. And obviously we've seen them. We know Spurs like Ivan Perisic. We know they like him. They've liked him for a long time. And Conte obviously knows him very well. And if he feels that he can play as a wing-back as well, which I think he did. I'm trying to remember. I think Conte pretty much turned him into one, didn't he? I think so. So in that case, if he were to come in and if he were to not sign a new contract with Inter, I think it would be a free transfer as well. So I think you get that done, don't you, if you can do the deal. I think he's 33 now, but again, that's an experienced player for the now. And I think for someone like Sessegnon to learn from him would be such a big thing. But yeah, and in that case, Reguilon, you're not going to get a lot of football, is he? So then you look at perhaps the situation changes with him. But yeah. So that 100 million, maybe not quite as it seems. But the key for Spurs is the money will be more available this time than it has in the past. I think a lot of that is to do with the pandemic and the uncertainty around the pandemic coming to an end. Because don't forget, even last summer, Spurs you weren't entirely sure whether you were going to get a season in the say. You didn't know whether there was going to be another lockdown. You didn't know whether variants and stuff were going to affect things. So Spurs haven't really been able to make big financial statements, as it were, because of fear of the unknown of what comes next. I think we're now at a stage where Spurs have had a full season in their stadium with proper crowds and everything. And it's been said in the past, and it is going to be true, that stadium is going to be a game changer for Spurs. It couldn't be in a pandemic because it was empty. And now, you look at the incredible amounts of money that stadium generates on a match day. If you remember way back in the early games before the pandemic, it was making £1 million a match on beer alone, and that was then. And so God knows what kind of stuff is made on food and drink, merchandise, and that's not even including the tickets for the huge numbers. 62,000 or so you can get in there. And then the other thing is, I know football fans who only care about football don't like to hear this so much, but those other events that are mocked, the Lady Gaga and Guns N' Roses concerts, the NFL games, the rugby matches, the Anthony Joshua fights, the corporate events and things like that, the funds from that, and you're talking about millions, that goes back into the club. And then this summer, that is there. That gives them the financial platform to then say, okay, we go for player A, we spend the big money because we know that revenue stream is going to be continuing for years to come. And also what helped Spurs is I think it was June last year, they wrapped up all of their pandemic losses into this £250 million long-term, they called it an institutional fund. And that's got a tenure of more than 20 years. So essentially, they've spread what was a big, sudden, unexpected loss into something that is right over long term. It really is. That puts them onto a stronger footing. The Champions League football brings in a revenue stream that will, depending on how successful they are, that will bring in a lot of money. And that's not even to say the stadium naming rights, which, they've still got to be sorted out. And actually, interesting, Todd Klein, who's the Spurs chief financial officer, one of his remits is to find that deal. He was speaking recently at an appearance at Sports Pro Live, which someone at Sports Pro typed up his interview. So here's some of these quotes in case you're interested. He said he was happy and excited with where the club is in the process of the naming rights. He described them as having as many twists and turns as I would have expected. And then he said, it was really challenging for lots of people who came before me in the environment of not being able to bring people to see and experience the wonder that is the stadium, obviously because of the pandemic and being closed. I'll admit, I'm a stadium geek. I love arenas, I love stadiums, I love clubs, I love seeing them all. And that stadium, is really special. And the reality is that you need people to experience how special it can be. So the world opening up, travel opening up, getting people into the building and really understanding the value that you can provide a brand has been critical. We're running a process. It's been a rewarding process. We've met some amazing people throughout it. And I think we'll land on the right partner for the right venue. And sometimes in doing complicated deals, sometimes patience is the move. If that patience is rewarded this summer, then that will be another huge boost into what Tottenham do. And, Todd Klein, a lot of people say a lot of good things about him. I know probably from the outside, people just see it as this naming rights deal isn't done. But this is a guy with a lot of experience in America at setting up big deals that bring lots of money into franchises, companies, wherever he was working at before. He's worked in a couple of NFL teams. He's worked in AIG as well. I think he was at as well. And he's a man that makes a lot of money for those companies that he works for. So not even a naming rights deal, but there will be other sponsorship deals that he will sort out in the coming months, years, whatever, that will also bring in a lot to kind of create Tottenham as a bigger revenue stream equals a bigger team on the pitch because it will be spent. It will. So yeah, Spurs were very honest with Conte in the first meeting they had back when he joined. That was more when it was uncertain still a little bit about the pandemic and which way it was going to go back in November. They were very honest with him and said, look, we don't know yet. We don't know how this is going to go. And he accepted that. And I feel like this meeting is going to be a very different one, this follow-up one. Like I say, they're going to give him guarantees about what he wants. And there's going to be a lot of talk about making the moves that he needs. Because there's been talk of, 6 or more players coming in. And, if you're going to lose, you think about the various loan players that they will want to move on. Like, Lo Celso and Ndombele, 2 for a start. That is... you've got all those players who aren't even here right now who are going to be moving on. I think they should be getting some Delhi money this summer as well, with Everton staying up especially. It's just about building a squad. It is. Like I say, Daniel Levy's not someone that's going to be held to ransom by Antonio Conte, but he's also a businessman. And whatever people want to say about him, he has proven himself to be a clever businessman in a lot of the things he's done, if not some of the decisions. But as a businessman, you've got to speculate to accumulate. And this is that summer. You've got, in Antonio Conte, a man you put your money on. You do, because you know what comes next of it. Look, as I've said before, he must be a nightmare to manage, Antonio Conte. He's an emotional chap. He's very demanding. And I've said this a million times. And for some reason, aggregator accounts on Twitter keep using it as if it's a new thing I've said. But he has been very frank in the way he speaks to Daniel Levy, perhaps franker than any other manager at the club. And he has told him exactly what needs to be done at the club. I mean, even Eric Dyer was very clear there about things that the club need to improve. And he's not just talking about money. And that's, that very well may be decision-making and things like that. And Levy Conte will be very demanding in this meeting. But as I've said, everything appears to sound like he's going to get what he wants out of this meeting, which is big for Spurs. It's big for the fans. It's big for this summer to come. It's big for me as a journalist because it's going to be fantastic to write about a summer where I'm not having to say, sorry, that one's not true. Because there actually might be some truth in some of these bigger ones that they're going for as well. And I think I think it's big for Conte as well because I kind of feel like this is a different challenge for him. He's always gone into clubs as, how do I put it, like big clubs that expect big things and he has to come in and deliver. I don't really see, I mean, maybe Juve back in the day, but that was still a big club anyway. Of course it was. But I feel like this is a project for him where everyone's hanging on his every word. He is the design. He is the architect of what Tottenham become. He is going to come in here. I mean, obviously Paratici will have a big say, but mainly Conte can drive this thing. I don't know whether he's had that responsibility of really creating a club and a vision and a project. You know, he's kind of got this reputation as a man that won't spend more than 2 or 3 years at a club. But he found in Tottenham a club without a direction, without a vision, that had kind of tried to stick to how it wanted to be in the past. But let's be honest, its vision was always married to whatever manager it was. And pretty much it formed what it wanted around, probably Pochettino was the key one. And it lost its way. It went from very different manager to the next very different manager. And none of them really followed in a certain direction. And I feel now it's looking for a captain of the ship to take them in the direction it wants to go in, or that he wants it to go in. And Conte is that captain. Captain Conte. I'm so excited about what... I mean, you just look at some of the things he's done. So you've got Sonny's best season at the club. Won the Golden Boot. Harry Kane, fitter than he's ever been. And that's saying something after some of the seasons he had before. And he's managed to avoid injuries this season. You know, I know some of his injuries have been unfortunate ones in the past, but that's a big thing as well for him to have a season without an injury. Hugo Lloris, you know, like I say, 16 Premier League clean sheets. He's putting his body on the line. You know, he played against Burnley despite having had a fever and feeling ill the other day. And you look at, you know, those who have come in. January, look, he moved, a few players moved on. I'm not saying they were bad seeds or anything like that, but they were unhappy voices. Players that wanted more game time and weren't getting it, and they were making their feelings known. Of course they were. Just naturally you do that without even kind of realising. And what he was left with, Conte created a squad where every person gave their all regardless of the minutes. Davinson Sanchez, like I say, the last 3 games has come in and he's been very, very good. Joe Rodon came on as a sub in North London Derby and Burnley. In both of those, made really important contributions from the bench. Ben Davies, like I say, Ben Davies has been revolutionised. Revolutionised? Has been revolutionary? Just, whatever I'm trying to say. He has been incredible under Conte. I'd say Dyer has had the most consistent season of his career. He's become a big, important player for Tottenham. And that's not even thinking about younger players like Oliver Skipp and Ryan Sessegnon, who've flourished under Conte and are only going to get better. And then you've got the newcomers, you've got the Christian Romero, you've got Bentancur, you've got Kulusevski. All of them love playing for him and know that he will not settle for what they think is their best. He wants the best he can get out of them, and that is a whole different ball game. It's fantastic. I mean, I didn't even say Kulusevski's numbers, did I? Kulusevski, 8 assists, 5 goals, which means 13 goal involvements in his 18 Premier League matches. That's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. The platform's there. Conte has built some really strong foundations, and now it's about Spurs putting in another platform on top of that for him then to shoot for what he wants to shoot for. He doesn't want another season where he can't win trophies. He wants to have a squad where he believes he can win things next season. And if Conte sticks around and doesn't kick up a fuss, that's a huge thing because it means Spurs can win things next season. It's very exciting. It is very exciting. I'm going to tell you the quotes that he said after, because we did ask him. He was asked a few questions. And also, that's another thing as well. Conte will also want to try and do something in Champions League next season, because I've told you this before. It's not a competition where as a manager he's had much success at all. He's only won 3 out of his last 15 games in the competition. So for him, you know, it's a competition where he can show what he's about. So let me give you some of the quotes from yesterday. Today is really important to celebrate this big achievement, but for sure to become competitive and be ready to fight for something important, you need to improve. Improve a lot in many aspects, and I know only one word. That is work, work, work. Everybody has to do the right path, has to be on the right path in this process, I think he means. We need to improve a lot. Next season, the league will be very difficult for all the teams. With 5 subs, you can change a game. If a bench is strong like a top team like City, Chelsea, United and Liverpool, you need to improve a lot your squad in quality aspect and numerical aspect. You have to face in England 3 national competitions and 1 in the Champions League. And when he was asked about how many new players he wants, he said, in this moment, it is very difficult to speak about this. I'm very tired. I was really focused to get this big achievement. First, it was a big achievement for myself. Despite the fact I didn't lift a trophy, for me it is a big achievement. For me, in a short time, a short period, in a difficult situation, I worked a lot with my players to bring this club to play Champions League football. I want to consider this qualification like a trophy. In my mind, my heart, my head, I know what we did in these 7 months. Me, my staff and the players, I want to celebrate and we'll have time to speak with the club about everything. So Conte was pushed again. Someone was asked from the back, can you confirm you will be Tottenham manager next season? To which he said, and he doesn't often refer to his contract, so this is maybe something as well. I'm under contract until next summer. I signed for 1 year and 7 months. I enjoyed a lot my time at Tottenham because I repeat, for me it was a big challenge. To come in during the season for a coach like me is not easy. It was a big challenge in a modern club with a fantastic stadium and training ground. I knew the situation I could find to give me the opportunity to work in the way that I want on the one hand. On the other hand, I have ambition. I like to fight for something important, to lift trophies. For me, this is a trophy and I'm very happy. Then we'll see. I always said at the end of the season we'll speak to the club and find the best solution for me and the club. And I think that best solution is going to be Antonio Conte staying at Tottenham. I hope so. I hope he takes everything they said. Like I say, from what I'm understanding, they're going to give him the guarantees he wants. So unless he comes in with a curveball, I'm hoping nothing can go wrong. This is Tottenham. So I could quite easily be doing a video in a couple of weeks' time of doom and gloom. But everything that's coming out seems to suggest it's going to go the way he wants it to go. And then, yeah, it's kind of all about the transfer window, really. I know certainly they're looking for a new striker. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Look, I know there's lots of Paulo Dybala links, as there always is. I'm told that's not one that Spurs are currently looking at. It's quite interesting because you've also got to factor in that I don't believe that Paratici is the biggest fan of Dybala. And I understand he was one of the ones looking to move Dybala on from Juventus back in 2019 when Spurs were trying to sign him. So, yeah, I don't see that as something that's likely to happen. Although I know some people would really like to have him. The key really for Spurs will be deciding whether they want to bring in a natural number 9, which is kind of Conte has said he looks for a focal point for his attackers, for his striker, or the alternative, of course, is to go for a striker that plays, maybe on the wing as well. So it's someone that will get more minutes because, look, however much we try and avoid it or try and say it's not true, Spurs do struggle to bring in strikers because of a certain Harry Kane. They just do. He's a man who's one of the top strikers in the game, and Conte's teams, they mostly play with one up front, but if they do play with 2 up front, that man's going to be Sonny. It probably is. So if you're coming in, you're not likely to be playing regularly unless there's an injury. So it's a very specific position, unless you change the formation to a certain degree. But even the 3-5-2, unless Sonny comes a wing back, which I think would be an utter waste of his talents, I think 3-5-2, I do think that becomes Sonny in that too. So, various players that they like. I know Spurs like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but there's an acknowledgement that he's unlikely to come to Tottenham to play regular football. I'd like to come to Tottenham if he's not playing regular football week in, week out. It's no real good for him at this point in his career. Obviously, it's the homegrown angle that's very appealing with him, and he's can be a target man as well, like Kane can be. I know Spurs like Gabriel Jesus. I reported that the other day. interesting because we know Arsenal like him. Actually, they like Calvert-Lewin as well. Jesus is interesting because he can play on the wing as well. He does kind of form both ones, and he is a good player. And his contract is reaching its final year. So maybe, I think City are asking quite big money for him, but maybe there's a player there that you can get a little bit of money off. But again, can Spurs guarantee him starting week in, week out? Do you know what? With that incredible front three of Kane, Son and Kulusevski, I'm not entirely sure you can guarantee anyone, any attacker, a starting slot. I genuinely believe that Kane, Son and Kulusevski could end up being one of the best, if not the best, front threes in the Premier League. And that's saying something. I just think the way you've seen them combine and know each other's games in just, 4 months since Kulusevski's come along, that next season could be incredible. I wouldn't be shocked if Kulusevski ends up being a 15-goal, maybe 20-goal player as well as Son and Kane. I think honestly it could be that good. Obviously, Champions League is another thing that Spurs can offer as well. I know they like, I want to get his name right, I wrote it down, Victor Osimhen from Napoli. I know they liked him when he was at Lille. Obviously, he's gone to Napoli, he's done very well there. Kept an eye on him. I think he's got 18 goals in 31 matches for Napoli. Who else they like? Alexander Isak, Real Sociedad. I know they liked him as well. He's Swedish, another Swede. Darwin Núñez, of course. I think he's got a great goal today. I think I wrote that one down. 34 goals in 41 matches for Benfica. They like Patrick Schick as well. He's got 24 goals in 31 games for Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, Conte and Paratici both like Lautaro Martinez, who Spurs had a little attempt at getting last summer. But he signed a new long-term deal, didn't he, this season? So I think the problem with all of those targets, and I know these are players that are on their kind of list, like the tops of their short list, they're all big money signings. And my only thing I'd say maybe about the striker position is, because of the difficulties in signing someone there, is that where you throw your money? And I just wonder whether the money side of things goes into the other positions where players will have more of a chance of being regular starters. Look, I know you need a lot of big players. You look at Liverpool and it's just ridiculous, their numbers. Salah, Mane, Firmino, Jota, Diaz. It's just incredible, the amount. And they are all superb. They are all huge players. But maybe that's because at Liverpool you do have that higher chance of winning a league title, the Champions League, things like that. So maybe players are slightly happier to have more revolving game time. I don't know if Spurs can convince people of that. So I do wonder whether you look at someone, obviously when you look at the past, what they've spent on Janssen and Llorente and Vinicius was a loan. I wonder whether they go down that route of trying to secure some kind of loan to buy or something like that. And maybe, I don't think you're probably going to get any of those top names that they wanted there in that. I don't know. We'll see. We know they also want a left-sided centre-back. I know that both Conte and Paratici adore Alessandro Bastoni from Inter Milan. He's 23, fits on the left side of a back three very nice. He'd be very similar to Romero on the right, provide great competition with Ben Davies in that role. Big money, though, I think. He's only got 2 years left in his deal, but there's talk that it'll be north of 50 million for him. But that's a top class player. That is someone, again, who ticks the box for Tottenham in being 23 and young, ticks the box of being very much ready for Conte, who has worked with him already. He would be class. For me, I'd put my money there over the striker. That's what I would say. If you were going to spend the big money, I'd put it on the left-sided centre-back with Bastoni, because I think he would be huge. That's the one of those places in the squad where they don't have two of. I know, yes, Kane doesn't have a backup, but I do think that's a role where you can maybe afford to spend a little bit less for now because of how brilliant Sonny is as well. Another central midfielder, I think they'll look at Harry Winks. I'd expect will want to leave the club to get regular football this summer, unless he feels that with the Champions League he may get more minutes in the Premier League. I don't know, but I know certainly that they're looking at Christian Eriksen as a potential, and Christian Eriksen will probably have a decision to make in the summer. Yuri Tielemans, Spurs have always liked, especially with Champions League to offer now. It'll be interesting to see whether they try and go in for him at Leicester. I think I wrote it down. His contract situation was maybe winding its way down as well. Obviously, Eriksen would be free, and that would be a big signing if they were to switch to a 3-5-2. He would very much come into that mix. But he may feel he wants to definitely start every single week for Brentford and show them a bit of loyalty, or maybe someone else comes in. But again, someone who knows Conte very well, and Conte knows him very well. So it'd be intriguing to see what happens there. Wing backs, I think you probably are going to see new faces on either side. Like I said, Reguilon, I think, might move on. You'd probably think that Spurs would listen to offers for Emerson, who's, he's played well as a defensive player. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think as a wing back, I think there's maybe only so much he can do. And I think with Matt Doherty, he was proving that as an experienced right back, I think he's good for that position. And then you maybe bring in another right wing back this summer. Centre back could probably be more than one centre back, because if you think about it, Joe Rodon is probably going to want to move on for game time. Conte loves him, but I think he knows he needs a season playing regular football. I hope it's a loan rather than a sale. I think Japhet Tenganga's another one. Probably needs regular football. I think they have to make a decision on him. Like I say, I wouldn't be shocked if Davinson Sanchez, they want him to stick around now. Especially with the amount of games that are played. It depends on what offers comes in. This is going to be key this summer, whether big deals come in that allow them to throw extra finance at other deals as well. We'll see. But there's also the homegrown aspect to take into account. Obviously, if Harry Winks does go, Dele Alli's headed out the door already. Alfie Devine and Dane Scarlett, I think, are probably going to both go on loans next season as well. So you've then got to look at keeping that. And I know people don't like the whole homegrown thing because it's annoying, but it does have to be adhered to, and the amount of numbers. So, they are looking at homegrown players. I think the goalkeeping one we're going to see probably quite soon, that changing. I think, Galini has said in an interview he'd like to stay, but I think in terms of homegrown numbers, it probably doesn't make much sense to make his deal permanent. It's really interesting in that one is that Sam Johnson, all the word coming out from everyone around that was that was all but done and that was going to happen. And then something seems to have shifted where it now looks like Fraser Forster is like to come in, the big 34-year-old former, was about to leave Southampton goalkeeper, which is an interesting one because I don't know what's happened there and what's changed, but Johnson was very much, from everything I heard from a few different sources, was all but done and was going to happen. So whether we get a late twist and they sign both, I wouldn't have thought so, because I'd imagine Brandon Austin, who only recently signed a new deal, will be the third goalkeeper. But if it's Forster, it's a man with experience. I think he's probably got a bit of mistake in him at times. I think he could maybe be a Joe Hart type coming in, though, with the experience more than anything. I just maybe felt like Sam Johnson would have pushed Lloris a bit more. But either way, it's all about that homegrown angle to it. Jed Spence, obviously on loan at Forest at the moment. If Forest don't go up, either way, I think Spurs will make a move for Jed Spence. But if Forest go up, then Forest maybe hold the cards because they'll have that extra money and he may want to continue his journey there. But if Forest don't go up, I don't think they'll have the money probably to make his deal permanent from Middlesbrough. And I think he'll maybe be more willing for a Premier League move. So he'll be a good one. And I know Spurs really like Brennan Johnson as well, who also plays for Forest. He is a talent, but I think there'll be a queue of people for him. The Welshman, although he was born in England, but he plays for Wales. He'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes. There's loads. It's going to be a busy one. It's going to be a really, really, really busy summer. I'm going to be, because take all of the players they actually need. Then what I told you in the past about how Paratici can negotiate up to 10 different deals for each position he's looking at. There's going to be numbers galore. My brain is going to be exploding trying to keep up with it all. And thankfully, I do have a holiday during the transfer window. I do. So I'm going to get away and you'll all get very excited because you'll think stuff will happen, and hopefully it will. But I think it's going to happen across the window. And I think it'll happen, hopefully stuff is going to start happening quite early on as well as they look to put things into place. But yeah, we'll have many, many, many more names to talk about. They're just some of the early ones to get the ball rolling. In terms of loan stuff, just to wrap up, this is probably the last loan roundup I'll do. Pape Matar, unfortunately, Mets went down. Final day, they lost 5-0 to PSG with Kylian Mbappe now staying at PSG, having his scoring a hat-trick. I think Mets had a man sent off as well just before about the hour mark. So there's that. And yeah, unfortunately, he finished his bet. But Sarr finished the season really well. 19-year-old in a relegation scrap. He played a big part in trying to drag them back up. You know, they won back-to-back victories before that PSG game. And they almost did it. But unfortunately, on the last day, I think it was Saint Etienne scored a 79th minute equaliser at Nantes, I think it was. And they just jumped into that playoff place at the last minute, relegation playoff spot. So Metz, as second from bottom, went down. So he will join up. We'll see what happens with Pape Matar next and whether Conte believes he's ready for the Premier League or not. And if he's not, they will loan him out. Tanguy Ndombele, 19 minutes from the bench in his last game for Lyon. Hasn't really gone the way he wanted back at Lyon. He's only started 7 matches in Ligue 1 for them. Hasn't really worked. Had a bit of an injury, which didn't help. But yeah. Will Lyon pay £54 million for him? I'd be surprised, and I'd be interested to see what Tottenham do with him next. Lo Celso played 90 minutes. They won at Barcelona to secure 7th place in European football. But Villarreal do want him. They don't have an option to buy him, so it'd be interesting to see what they do with him. And I think Real Betis apparently is sniffing around trying to get him back as well. So I think he's one that Spurs will have interest in. So that's good. And he's played well. Played in a more attacking role as like a support striker, number 10 type. Obviously helped Villarreal to the Champions League semi-final. So it's all gone very well for him. Brian Hill, he got taken off at half-time. Valencia's last match, which was a 2-0 win against Celta Vigo. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Valencia, I think, want to keep him on loan for another season. Whether that benefits Spurs, I don't know. I think there would have to be a decent fee involved in that one. Obviously, he's got a long contract, so you know, whatever comes next is not going to be absolutely pivotal to his Tottenham career, but it needs to be the right move for everyone. Jack Clarke got promotion with Sunderland. That was fantastic. Unfortunately for him, didn't start the game, but it came on for about the last half hour. Had a big chance later on. I watched him ran through a few challenges. I thought he was going to score a lovely solo goal, but the keeper saved it. But yeah, he's got promoted with them, so we'll see what happens with him this summer and whether Sunderland want to keep him, which I think they might do. And then Alfie Whiteman, he's the only one still out on loan at Degerfors in Sweden. They lost on Sunday 2-1 at Varbergs. So yeah, there's a recall clause for him that Spurs have got if they ever want to bring him back this season, but probably good for him to continue getting experience. So yeah, I think that's the last loan roundup. So there you go. Right, I'm going to head off because I've got something I've got to do in about 3 minutes. I'm going to have to run off. But hopefully, I think this is the longest video we've done. Hour and 22 minutes thus far. But good times, exciting times, wonderful way to finish the season. Thank you for everyone that's been with me throughout this season as well. I've enjoyed its highs, its lows have been frustrating, but we got to the end. And I think we're going to have a really exciting summer. We've got the Korea tour. I'll be heading out there as well. And hopefully a really big season to come. Something with the likes of we haven't seen before. So fingers crossed on that. And I'm going to head off now. And as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. And I shall catch you later. Goodbye.